The NBA regular season is a little bit over halfway through, and that means it's time to start thinking about end-of-season awards. While some awards are pretty much locked up at this point, other awards, including the MVP, are still up for grabs. So today, I'm going to go over who I believe deserves each major award at this point of the season. We're going to start off by talking about the Rookie of the Year award race. And as you can tell by the text of let's just get this one out of the way, there's not really a true star or someone who really stands out in this class in the way that they have in previous seasons. As you can tell from the past 5 winners, all of those guys are either all-stars now or will be all-stars in the case of Victor Wembanyama. And so far through this season, no one from this rookie class has really stood out in the way that those 5 guys have. But ultimately, I do think that is okay. Because at number 3, we have a guy like Jalen Wells. I mean, Jalen Wells has truly cemented himself as one of the best rookies in this class solely because of the grit and the energy he plays with on the court on both sides of the ball. Now, his stats don't look the most impressive, but you also do have to consider there are multiple stars on the Grizzlies, and Jalen Wells is more of a supporting piece. From the little write-up that you can see at the bottom, he's going to be a great complementary piece next to a guy like Ja and Jaren Jackson Jr., someone who's not going to take the majority of the shots in a game, but someone who's going to find the right shots to take. He's going to be open when he takes those shots. He's going to make the right cuts, get open layups. He's going to do all the right things on the basketball court, and that's what you want from someone who's a complementary piece next to 2 stars like Ja Morant and Jaren Jackson Jr. He has already won the Western Conference Rookie of the Month once, and he is a starter. He took over the starting job from a guy like Marcus Smart, someone who won the Defensive Player of the Year just 2 years ago. And while Marcus Smart hasn't been very good on the Grizzlies, I think it's still very important to recognize the impact that Jalen Wells has on this team and how much better the Grizzlies are when he plays. And then in the second spot, right now I'd have Kel'el Ware. Now, again, you look at those stats and you're like, why is he even in consideration for Rookie of the Year? And honestly, I understand, because this pick right here is more so projection more than anything. Kel'el Ware has recently started to play basketball. He didn't really play much in the first couple of months of his career, but in the last, I'd say 3-4 weeks maybe, Kel'el Ware has been really, really good, getting serious PT, and he looks like a piece that the Heat could actually build around. Right? Without Jimmy Butler, minutes have opened up for the young guys to take, and Kel'el Ware has shined in those minutes. But at number 1, I'm going to have Stephon Castle of the Spurs, and here's why. Like all of these guys before, if you look at their stats, it doesn't look that impressive, especially his shooting percentages. But ultimately, what makes Stephon Castle so impactful is his defense and his ability to move off the ball on offense. What helps Stephon Castle's case is, of course, being next to a guy like Victor Wembanyama. Wemby makes everyone next to him look better, but Stephon Castle does all the right things on the court. He cuts well off the ball, he gets his open shots, he even has his flashes every once in a while where he can create for himself and create for others. That's a great sign for the Spurs' future if this guy is going to be your point guard of the future. But ultimately, what I want to highlight here is that this draft class is extremely hit or miss. I highlighted those 3 guys, but I didn't even talk about one of the top 3 picks in the NBA draft, that being Shai, Sarr, and Shepherd. And that's because while they've had their flashes, especially Sarr and Shai, they haven't truly impressed me. They have a lot of potential to impress me in the future, but right now they're still very raw. They still have a lot of things to work on if they want to hit that untapped potential. But I also want to highlight that this draft class so far hasn't looked like one of the worst that we've seen in NBA history. If you want to take a trip down memory lane with me, these 2 draft classes right here were pretty uninspiring at the start. In 2001, Mike Miller was the Rookie of the Year, and he was pretty much a role player for a struggling Magic team. Other than him, there was a guy like Kenyon Martin, I believe, was second. Darius Miles was 4th in Rookie of the Year voting. You know, this was not a very good draft class, and while it didn't pan out to be the best draft class, there were still okay contributors in there that made it worthwhile, that made taking these guys and taking a chance on them worthwhile. And then you look at the 2016 draft class, as you all remember, the infamous 2016-2017 Rookie of the Year voting, where Malcolm Brogdon won it over Dario Saric and Joel Embiid, who played only 30 games in the season. This draft class looked terrible at the start. And then you have a guy like Jaylen Brown, who has emerged as a finals MVP, and one of the biggest reasons why the Celtics won the NBA title in 2024. Jamal Murray won the title in 2023. There's guys like that in this draft class who have emerged after slow starts to be one of the better pieces and one of the better players in the NBA. Now, I'm not saying this 2024 draft class could have a guy like Jaylen Brown or Jamal Murray. But what I'm saying is, while this doesn't look too impressive right now, this draft class could end up being pretty good if we give these guys time. We're going to have to wait and see how those rookies perform in the next couple of years, but for now, let's shift our focus to the Most Improved Player award. And the question I have entering this discussion is, will the trend of rewarding star players continue? In the last 5 years, I believe all 5 of those guys were all-stars in the year that they won the award. And of course, you have household names like Ja Morant and Tyrese Maxey, guys who have really contributed in the past couple of years and become stars, in Ja Morant's case, a superstar. But ultimately, this award used to be for players who went from, 5 or 6 points per game to 15, They're not guys who are all-stars, but they're guys who went from end-of-the-bench pieces to quality rotational pieces. So my question is, will the trend of rewarding star players continue? And that kind of goes into the discussion of this year, where the 2 main candidates for the Most Improved Player award is Norman Powell and Cade Cunningham. Now, Norman Powell has always been a very solid role player, but this year, he's really stepped up his play. He's become a quality starter for the Clippers, for the overachieving Clippers, might I add, and he's been the top scorer on that team and really evolved his perimeter scoring, really evolved everything about his game. And Cade Cunningham, well, he was the number 1 overall pick 3 years ago. And while the Pistons have been underperforming for his entire career, this year, they're starting to play fairly well, almost solely because of Cade Cunningham. Cunningham has really upped his play and taken the leap that we've expected him to take as the number 1 overall pick. And here you can see the cases that I have for both guys. At its purest form, this award was made for a guy like Norman Powell. He took a huge leap to an actual number 1 or number 2 option as a scorer, and he's extremely efficient. I think he shoots about 44% from 3 and like 52 or 53% from the field. He is incredible as a scorer, not only because of a guy like James Harden setting him up, but also because his isolation scoring has improved dramatically. And then the case for Cade Cunningham is pretty obvious. Recently, this award has gone to a guy like Cunningham, like a young top pick who has taken an expected leap. But even still, Cade Cunningham, his leap has made him look like a real number 1 option. And both of these guys are truly deserving of the award, but it also begs the question of what does this award actually mean? Outside of Markkanen's win in 2023 and arguably Randall's win in 2021, the Most Improved Player has pretty much gone exclusively to has gone to a top draft pick making a leap previously expected of them, or a promising young star making an expected leap because they're getting more opportunity. In my opinion, that does take away from the true meaning of the award when you think about a guy, as I mentioned here, like Pascal Siakam and Jimmy Butler. Siakam was number 27 in the draft. Jimmy Butler was number 30. These guys had to work their way from end of the rotation to rotation, and they ended up being all-star level players. These are guys who truly had to grind and work for the respect that they got from their peers and from coaches, and that's why they deserve the award. And Cade Cunningham has had an incredible season, don't get me wrong, but this is what we expected from him. Coming out of Oklahoma State, Cade Cunningham was seen as one of the best prospects that we have seen in a long time. Most Improved Player, at its true roots, were reserved for a guy like Norman Powell. This award was made for a guy like Norman Powell, because Cade Cunningham is going to get his awards in the future. He's going to be an all-star. He's going to be all-NBA. He might even be top 3 in MVP discussions in just a couple of years when the Pistons get really good. That's how good I believe Cade Cunningham can be, and that's the level he's playing at right now. But at its core, this award was made for a guy like Norman Powell, who's not going to get much discussion in all-star voting, who's not going to be an all-NBA guy. This is for someone who has truly upped their play, but isn't going to be one of the elite of the elites. They're going to be someone who's a quality starter from here on out. So because of that, I have this award going to Norman Powell in the middle of the season. Things can drop off, though. Norman Powell could maybe fall off on his shooting percentages a little bit. Cade Cunningham could jump up, cut down on the turnovers. Maybe my opinion will change, but for right now, Norman Powell has to be the Most Improved Player, in my opinion. Now let's move on to the 6th Man of the Year award. If you look at the last 5 winners, Jordan Clarkson, Tyler Hero, those are just heat checks. Montrezl Harrell, Naz Reid, energy guys off the bench. And Malcolm Brogdon was a solid piece for the Celtics to have in 2023, and he truly helped them be one of the better teams in the East. But my question is starting 10 to 20 games a cheat code to winning this award? We saw a lot of conversations last year with Naz Reid doing that, I believe maybe Jordan Clarkson did that, maybe Tyler Hero. I'm not sure. But this is a conversation that was had last year that I think will translate over to this year, because this award is pretty much down to Amen Thompson versus Peyton Pritchard. Now, Amen Thompson, we'll talk about Amen Thompson in just a little bit. I'll talk about Peyton Pritchard first. Peyton Pritchard has been an elite off-the-bench scorer. He's averaging, I think, 16 points per game for the Celtics, and he's been one of the reasons why their offense has still been very solid, despite some struggles from other star players on that team. Peyton Pritchard is an off-the-bench spark plug, a guy who can come in and rejuvenate the offense that has been struggling, and he can come in and even close out a game for the Celtics if he's been playing well enough. Peyton Pritchard has been incredible. In many other years, this would be Peyton Pritchard's award. But if you've been keeping up with the NBA for the past month, you'll realize that Amen Thompson has been really, really, really good. Over the last 10 games, averaging 19 points a game, 11 rebounds, 4 assists, 2 steals, and 1 block. Amen Thompson has just been the key to the Rockets' success, and that's why I'm begging the question, is he the key to the Rockets' future? We heard a lot of conversations involving trades regarding Kevin Durant. I know a lot of Rockets fans want Devin Booker. De'Aaron Fox could potentially go to the Rockets. The Rockets, a lot of fans want them to make win-now moves, but in my opinion, they might not even need it if Amen Thompson is playing this well. But the question for this season is, will he be able to qualify for the award? Now, the qualifications for this award is that a player must come off the bench for over half of their games. Amen Thompson has missed 3 of the Rockets' games so far, and he's had 15 starts in his 42 games played. If he started for the rest of the season, he would play 79 games and log 52 starts, which would mean that he would be ineligible for this award. So, if he were able to qualify for this award, he would have to come off the bench for 13 more games. Now, will the Rockets do this? I don't know. Personally, I wouldn't. Amen Thompson has been incredible for the Rockets so far, and I wouldn't stop the hot streak that he's on right now. I know they have some injuries with Jabari Smith, but even when Jabari Smith comes out, I would test Amen Thompson in the starting lineup because that seems to be the key to their success. But ultimately, if he does continue starting, he will be ineligible for this award, and it will go to Peyton Pritchard. But if he is continuing to come off the bench for 13 more games, just 13 more, honestly, the Rockets may even just do that just so he gets this award. But if he continues to come off the bench, he will absolutely win this award. And as of the midseason, he will. But if he continues to start, Peyton Pritchard will ultimately win this award. Let's quickly move on to the Coach of the Year award race. Just as a whole, Kenny Atkinson has the narrative of winning 65 plus games, as the Cavaliers are probably going to win 65 or at least 60 games. And he also has a big improvement with this Cavaliers team, not only in the wins column, but also with the players. Evan Mobley and Darius Garland have been incredible for the Cavaliers so far this season, and his coaching has unlocked a new, much superior version of them. And because of that, the Cavaliers are rolling. They look like one of the best teams in the NBA, not just in the regular season, but they also look like a real threat in the playoffs. So quickly, I'm just going to say Kenny Atkinson pretty much already has this award locked up. I'm curious to see how the Cavaliers do perform in the playoffs, but so far from what we've seen from them, they look like a true contender who could really make some noise out east or maybe even in the NBA Finals. And now let's move on to the Defensive Player of the Year award. As you can see, my question is, will blank run away with this award and for how many years in a row? Of course, the guy that I'm talking about is Victor Wembanyama. I said I was going to talk about his defense in just a little bit. Here we are. He's already the best rim protector in the NBA at 21 years old. Just sit down and watch a game of the Spurs and watch Wembanyama on defense. Watch the impact he has both on the perimeter and especially in the post. It's just so interesting how he impacts the game without even blocking shots. And even still, he blocks, I believe, 3.9 per game. That's the most in the NBA, of course. And he averages 5 stocks per game, steals and blocks. And the crazy thing about that is that number is only going to improve with more NBA experience, as he learns more players' tendencies, as he continues to grow his basketball IQ. His ability to get more blocks and steals is only going to grow, and that is just scary. And the Spurs are only going to get better from this point, not only because of Wembanyama's defensive ability, but also because their supporting cast is going to continue getting better, which means better perimeter defenders, which means a better team defensive rating, which means Wembanyama is going to be almost a lock for this award every single season. And the reason why I say how many years is he going to win it in a row is because if the Spurs continue to have a top 5 defense and Victor continues to average 5+ stocks per game, he's going to be unstoppable in this award race. there's going to be zero reason why he doesn't win this award unless he gets injured. And it's honestly crazy to think about how in 5 years, this man could very easily have the most Defensive Player of the Year awards in NBA history. That's how good he is on the defensive side of the ball. I do want to shout out guys like Evan Mobley and Jaren Jackson Jr., guys who have been very good defensively, but just not up to the level of Wembanyama. So clearly, for the midseason and for the end of the season award, Victor Wembanyama will be the Defensive Player of the Year. And now, the moment you all have been waiting for, the Most Valuable Player award. The question that I have for this is this the most close MVP race since 2010? We will answer that question in a little bit. But for now, let's start at number 5, that being Jason Tatum. Some people might kind of scratch their head at this because Tatum is one of the most hated NBA players right now, but ultimately I think his impact has been really impressive for the Celtics. If you've been keeping up with Celtics ball recently, you'll know that Jaylen Brown and Derek White, they've been good, but they haven't been at the level that they were just a couple of seasons ago and in their last playoff run. So because of that, Tatum has had to carry a lot more of the load offensively. He's occasionally inconsistent, I will say. That is one of the problems with Tatum and one of the reasons why he isn't higher. However, his impact in many other aspects of the game is still superb. Him rebounding and playmaking for the Celtics team has been very impressive, and I think Tatum has had one of his best seasons to date. Then we move on to number 4. We already talked about Wemby's defense for a little while, but I do want to say that his impact on both sides of the ball, not just defense, is practically unmatched. His ability to score was lacking a little bit when he first came into the NBA, but he's really improved his shot. He's really found his spots very easily on the court. He's going to be a force to reckon with probably next year, and that's not even an over-exaggeration. So it's going to be years before Wemby gets real MVP buzz because the Spurs really aren't that good of a team yet. But once the Spurs start to build around him properly and get him true winning pieces, he's going to be an MVP in the next 3 to 5 years. And that takes us to number 3, that being Giannis Antetokounmpo. Giannis's core has not been great around him. I will say Damian Lillard's had a pretty under-the-radar season so far. He's been fairly good. I would expect his name to be called out for the All-Star reserves, though I would not be completely surprised if it's not. However, Giannis has been incredible, despite guys like Brook Lopez and Chris Middleton somewhat underperforming for their expectations. Giannis is in the midst of one of the most dominant stretches in NBA history, and it's crazy because no one's talking about it, and also at the same time, it's because there's players that are playing better than him. That's kind of crazy to say because Giannis has been so incredible. He's cutting down on the threes. He's playing very good defense, honestly. He's just doing incredible in every aspect of basketball. He's shooting over 60% from the field, and he's driving to the rim better than ever. At age, I believe he's 30 years old now. Giannis is just incredible, and it's sad that his fate is going to be that he will always finish in the top 5 of MVP voting, but he probably is never going to finish inside the top 2 ever again. I'm glad he got his 2 MVP awards earlier in his career, because now, although Giannis is extremely dominant, his season just doesn't really compare to the other 2 guys above him. And that leads us to the final question, that being, who is the MVP this season? You guys already know the 2 candidates, and my answer is that I just don't know. But let's go over it why I think each guy does deserve this MVP award. The case for SGA is pretty obvious. He's already one of the best all-around players in the NBA, just with his offensive ability, getting to the spots he has on the floor. He just plays so effortlessly when the ball is in his hands. He gets to his spots so easily. He always makes the right decisions, whether to shoot, to pass, to do whatever he needs to do. He's just so incredible, and recently with his 2 50-plus point games, he's shown why he's one of the best offensive threats in the NBA. And defensively, he has great instincts. He always gets a lot of steals. He always can lock down on the perimeter. It's honestly impressive how good SGA is on both sides of the floor. But then, of course, you have Nikola Jokic. I feel like this guy's just going to be in MVP conversations for as long as he's in his prime. And the crazy thing with Jokic is that he's arguably having the best season of the 21st century. The way he still runs his offense and plays just still amazes me every time I watch it. And then, of course, you add in the efficiency. I believe he still leads the NBA in three-point percentage, but I'm not sure if that's true. Either way, he still shoots above 45% from 3. He still has such a high basketball IQ, and he's one of the greatest offensive players I have ever seen, and we will likely ever see in NBA history. The thing that does hold him down, though, is his defense. I think his instincts are good, but his physical limitations, that being speed and agility, it's just not there. And there are possessions where it's just not good at all for Jokic. I think he's okay defensively, but he's nowhere near any of the other guys that I've talked about on this MVP ladder. And of course, it also doesn't help that his supporting cast isn't great at defense, but overall, because of his impact on offense, it almost makes up for his somewhat subpar defense. And that kind of leads me to say that SGA probably is the MVP favorite. Again, I wouldn't mind you having either or as the MVP right now, but because the Thunder are on pace for 65 plus wins, because the Thunder are meshed so well and they're so dominant in the regular season, I don't think it's crazy to say that SGA is the MVP despite Jokic averaging a 30-point triple-double this season. That does lead me to the first question of, is this the closest MVP race since the 2010s? I would argue so far, yes. I will say that 2017 between Westbrook and Harden was really close, and I remember not even being able to pick there who deserved the MVP. There still are conversations on who deserved that MVP to this day, but I believe this one might even be just slightly closer because both teams are pretty quality teams in a really stacked Western Conference, and both guys are having incredible, just ridiculous individual offensive seasons, and SGA is bringing the defensive intensity and the level that you would want from an MVP. So because of that, I lean slightly towards SGA, but I would not be mad if you said Jokic deserves the MVP. And ultimately, that is what I'd want to hear from you guys. Well, who do you think deserves this MVP award? If you disagree with anything I said about any other award race, please comment that down below. Don't forget to hit the like button on this video and subscribe for more NBA videos just like this one. And with that, thank you all for watching. I appreciate it, and I'll see you next time.